Hi, welcome to the Itihasa channel. We spoke about how the Pandavas and their mother Kunti escaped from the burning house of lack and came to the sweet, sleepy little town of Ekachakra. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Nagendraya Namaha, Om Amme Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Swamiye Sharnamayapo, Om Anjanaya Namaha, Om Kartikaya Namaha, Om Guruve Namaha. And so one day, when the brothers had gone out to collect alms, Kunti and Bheema were sitting in the house, wondering what they should cook and how they should cook for the day, when suddenly the air was rent with cries and laments coming from the house of the Brahmana. Kunti realized that this was a serious matter. She knocked on the door and went in. And she looked at the Brahmana and said, I couldn't help listening to you all cry, and I couldn't help listening to the sorrow in your heart. Pray tell me, what is it that troubles you? Pray tell me, what is it that's affecting you? For it's quite possible I shall be able to be of some help to you. And the Brahmana started recounting the story behind, the reason behind why they were crying so desolately. And so the Brahmana started to tell the story of this wild rakshasa who lived in the jungles surrounding the sleepy little town of Ekachakra. He was a rakshasa called Bakasura, an absolutely wild, huge rakshasa of immense power. And he used to come down into the town at regular intervals whenever he was hungry, attack the people, attack the crops, attack the households, kill a few people, take a few back, eat them up. And he was a cannibalistic asura rakshasa. And they were in this little sleepy town which belonged to a kingdom, and the king was an imbecile and an impotent man who could not take care of his subjects, who could not take care of the people who were his responsibility. And multiple times he had told his wife that they were itinerant Brahmins who should be going from place to place and should not settle down in one particular place. And if they were to settle down, they were supposed to seek a place that had stability in the form of a good and worthy king who would protect them, the ability to earn wealth where they would be able to survive and live a luxurious life, and a family and wife and children who would bring happiness to them. And if these three conditions were met, then life would be stable and life would be enjoyable. But in this case, though he had a nice town and he was able to garner a bit of wealth and had a good family, a worthy family who gave him pleasure and peace and satisfaction, they were in a town which belonged to the kingdom of an impotent and useless king, an imbecile of a man who did not care for his subjects. Repeatedly had people gone and told the king about this Bakasura who would come down into this town and lay waste to the town, wantonly killing people around, randomly killing people all around him. And even though they had gone and prayed to the king, their pleas fell to deaf ears and he did absolutely nothing to help them out. And it was because they took a bad decision to stay in a kingdom without a stable king, without a worthy king, that they had to come to this day where they would have to go and die at the hands of Bakasura. And then Kunti told the Brahmana that she's not seen this Bakasura come and lay waste to the country, to the city, as long as they were there. So what is bringing up the situation right now? And then the Brahmana told Kunti about how a few years ago, the elders and a group of people from the town had gone to meet Bakasura and told him that they would have a deal with Bakasura where every week they would send one person from the town with a cart loaded with food, unlimited food which was made tasty for him. And this cart would be drawn by two huge oxen. And then this wild rakshasa was free to eat all the food that was cooked for him, feed on the oxen that was bringing this cart, and also feed on that poor hapless man who would be drawing the cart to that forest. And so in this way, Bakasura would get his pleasure of having to eat human flesh, getting to eat the flesh of oxen and tastily cooked food from the town. In return, he would offer protection for this town. He would not allow the other Rakshasas to come. He would basically do the work that the king was supposed to do for this town, protecting the town. And at the same time, he would not come into town and lay waste to the town, randomly killing the people around. And so an uneasy agreement was reached between Bakasura and the people of the town, where Bakasura would wait every week for this cartload of food to be brought in by one man drawn by 2 oxen, and Bakasura would have the pleasure of consuming that man, the oxen, and the food. And in return, he and his fellow Rakshasas would give protection to the town of Ekachakra, and nobody else would be allowed to come and attack them. And then the Brahmana said, then now it is the turn of my household. Finally, it is time for us to go, and one of us has to take this food tomorrow morning to this Bakasura. And this is the cause for our lamenting, this is the cause for our sorrow. I am not a very rich man. It is not possible for me to hire another man to give up his life for us. It is not possible for me where I could afford to ask somebody else to take our place tomorrow. And so it has come to a situation where one of us has to go. And I have decided it will be me who will go as the head of the family. And tomorrow is the day when I shall take this food to Bakasura and he shall consume me. And Kunti gave a tender, loving smile and said, you are a beautiful family. You have given us support. You have given us shelter when we needed it the most. You have taken us in without grumbling once, without cribbing once. You have never told anything wrong to us, and you've always been loving and caring towards us. And we know we've been a burden to you, for I have 5 young boys with me. And yet you have taken us with so much dignity and grace. It is just right that I repay what you have done for us. You have just one small, tender child, a son, and a young daughter who still has her whole life ahead of her. I have 5 grown-up sons. I have 5 worthy sons. It is but right that I ask one of my sons to take that cart tomorrow to this vile Rakshasa Baka. Let one of my sons go and take this food to them. And hearing this, that Brahmana was aghast. He was shocked, and he would have none of it. Any other normal man would have jumped at the idea that Kunti had given. But this Brahmana was made of different metal. He refused completely, and he told Kunti that you all are Brahmanas who are staying under my care. What kind of sin would I endure if I sacrifice the people who came to me for protection? I sacrifice the people who came to me to live under my care. What a vile man would I be, and how will I cleanse that karma from my life and from the remaining next few lives that I will live, that I have sacrificed a Brahmana for the sake of my life. And you know the Vedas and Shastras clearly mention that Brahmana Hatya is a crime in itself. And so I will be doing a double crime, one of Brahmana Hatya and then the crime of having to betray people who have come to me for protection, people who have come to me for solace. I can never let this happen. And Kunti looked at him and said, do you think that just because I have 5 children, I love them any less? It is not because I love these children less that I'm sending them to the Rakshasa. I know my children, and I know that they are worthy enough and they may even come back safe. And the Brahmana said, I'm hearing none of it. There is no way I'm going to allow one of you to give your children to give their life for this Rakshasa. For there is nowhere in the Vedas where it would justify that a man can allow the people staying with him to sacrifice their life for him. And I cannot have that. I would rather give my life than ask you, O worthy lady, and allow a Brahmana Hatya to be done at my hands, for then whatever punya I have achieved till now shall all go in vain. And then Kunti looked at the Brahmana and said, this is my son Bheema. He is no ordinary human. He is a gifted man and he has been gifted great powers, great occult powers by his teacher. His great occult powers can make him bear any Rakshasa, and I have seen him in the past take on a few Rakshasas in the past. And he's come out victorious because of the occult powers that has been taught to him by his teacher. All I want from you is to not divulge to anybody this secret. For if it comes to be known that he has occult powers, there will be many people who will come to take these occult powers from him, will force him to teach them these occult powers that can subdue the great Rakshasas. I know my son will be safe. It is not that I feel that I'm sending my son to his death or that I love my son any less. I am very confident that my son will come back alive and he shall use his occult powers to subdue the Rakshasa. And I am very confident that this Rakshasa will in no way be able to overpower my son. And it is with this knowledge that I send him tomorrow in your stead. But please understand that this should be a secret that stays only between us. You cannot reveal this secret to anybody. Make up a story that somebody else had come and that person had gone in your stead. But no one should ever know that my son has got the occult powers. For if he is forced to give these occult powers without the permission of his guru to people who do not deserve, he will himself lose these powers, and that cannot happen. And the Brahmanas then got convinced and asked Kunti, are you sure his occult powers are strong enough to overcome this evil, vile Bakasura? For there was a time when a small army contingent had come to try and overpower him, and he made short work of them. And he landed up eating all of them. So are you really sure your son's occult powers are good enough to take on this Bakasura? And Kunti said, I have seen him take on multiple Rakshasas in the past, and I have full confidence in it. Worry not, my man. You ask your wife to cook the tastier food tomorrow for him to take with him. And my son shall take the cart with the 2 oxen to the Rakshasa tomorrow. And be assured he shall come back safe. And the Brahmana, his wife and the children fell at Kunti's feet, sobbing intensely and said, we can't thank you enough for what you have done. We only pray that his life shall be saved, and I shall pray to every God that I know that they shall protect him and they shall be around him to support him in his fight against the Rakshasa. And then the Brahmana lady said that I shall cook the tastier food for your son to take tomorrow. For if your son cannot overpower the Rakshasa, let him at least entice him with this wonderful food, that his life may be spared. And so saying, Kunti came back to the room and told Bheema what had transpired. And she told Bheema that tomorrow I want you to go and give this food to the Rakshasa and overpower him and kill him. And the gleam in Bheema's eyes was unmistakable. For all those days that they had stayed in Ekachakra, Bheema was getting bored of life. He was a man who was used to extreme physical combat, extreme physical exercise. And in this sleepy little town, the only physical exertion he got was where he would chop up some wood somewhere, maybe help out a few of the residents of the town with their manual labor, and probably in the evenings when the Pandava brothers would go out for a little hunting session in the forest around. And so the gleaming Bheema said, do not worry, mother. Tomorrow I shall go and take the food. Eventually, by and by, the Pandavas, the remaining Pandava brothers, came back to the little house. And one look at Bheema Yudhishthira realized that something was up. He immediately went to his mother and asked, have you given Bheema some task, or has he decided to take it up voluntarily? For the smile and cheer in his face is unmistakable, and I know what this signifies. Tell me, mother, what is it that you have told Bheema to do? And Kunti told the story of the Brahmana and the offer she had given to them. And Yudhishthira's eyes suddenly became bloodshot and red. His face turned into a frown, and for the first time, a little bit of anger came towards his mother, and he asked her, What have you done, O mother? What have you done? Do you not know how important Bhima Sena is to us? For when the palace of Lak caught fire, it was Bhima Sena who carried us, all 5 of us, in his arms. 4 of us brothers and you, mother, he brought us in his arms, traversed through the forest, beating down trees and bushes and running over hillocks, getting us to safety. And when that evil rakshasa Hidimba attacked us, it was Bhima Sena who, though he was tired from all the exertion of carrying us, who hadn't slept a wink from the time we came out of the palace, single-handedly overpowered the rakshasa and killed him. And do you not know how important Bhima Sena is for us? For if by chance we lose Bhima Sena tomorrow during that wild fight with the rakshasa, and we don't even know how powerful this rakshasa is. For tomorrow, if we lose Bhima to the rakshasa, our chances of survival become slim. We may not be able to survive, and we may never be able to get back the Hastinapur kingdom. Do you not know how important Bhima Sena is? Why did you, on a whim, give up our brother to the Rakshasa? How can you take such a risk, O mother? And Kunti looked at him and smiled and said, as I told Bhima earlier, this Brahmana family has taken us in and given us shelter and given us support. We are safe today because of them, and a great man should give back much more than what he's been given. Do you think I'm going to send Bhima to his death? Do you think I have lost my maternal instincts that I would allow him to die? I know what my son is capable of, for when he was just born and I was sitting in the forest, he once fell down from a great height onto a great rock below when I was scared with the roar of a lion. And fearing the worst, I ran down the hill to fetch him, and I saw there Bhima laughing and enjoying the fall, for it seemed like a ride down for him. But the earth under his back had shattered where he had fallen down. This Vayu Putra is no ordinary man. When he went into Naga Loka and had the Nagamrita, he became 100 times more confident, 100 times more powerful. And I know exactly the power this Bhima has. And as Yudhishthira continued to look accusingly at Kunti for putting his brother Bhima Sena in a difficult position, in a position of risk where he might lose his life, Kunti turned comfortably to Yudhishthira and told him, just before we came to this town of Ekachakra in the forest, when we met Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyasa, when you all were not around, he told me about the future that is in store. He told me that in his intense dhyana, he had come to know that one day these 5 brothers would perform the Rajasuya Yajna. One day they would perform the Ashwamedha Yajna. And the great Yudhishthira, as righteous to a fault, supported ably by his 4 brothers, would rule the earth. That the great Maharathas, Arjuna and Bhima Sena, would traverse the length and breadth of Bharat Varsha, getting name, fame and wealth for this great kingdom. And he also said that the sons of Madri, Nakula and Sahadeva, along with Arjuna and Bhima Sena, would always be there by the side of the Emperor Yudhishthira and would know no want and would have every luxury of the time. So when I tell you that Bhima Sena will be safe, I know for a fact that he will be safe. Take the worry away from your mind. Calm yourself down, Yudhishthira. I know his importance for us, and I know why he is important for us. Eventually, he is the one who will make the difference between us getting the kingdom and us losing it. And yet, having known all this and having seen the way he had fought the Rakshasa Hidimba, and knowing his prowess only too well, I have made this offer. Fear not, my child Yudhishthira. Understand the strength that your brother has, for I have understood it. It is time you do too. And hearing his mother's words, a calm came down on Yudhishthira. He smiled back, touched her feet and said, I'm sorry for having been harsh to you, O mother. You know best, and I know your love for us is immense, and I know your love for us is unconditional. You will not let Bheema go into his death. You have thought well before you made this offer. And then the brothers went to meet Bheema and hugged him and blessed him and said, may you come back victorious from the Rakshasa tomorrow. And Bheema was as thrilled as ever. The next day, early morning, through the night, the Brahmana lady had cooked her best food that she could prepare. She had prepared the most tasty food that she had ever done in her life, and by morning, the entire cartload of food was ready. Rice aromatic to the point where it was mouth-watering to everyone who stood around. Lentils and other curries that she had prepared through the night using the finest of powders, using the finest of condiments, using the finest of leaves and herbs, all added into this beautiful cauldron which she went on cooking through the night, making the most flavorable and the tastiest of food she's ever cooked in her life. And by it was all loaded onto the cart, a cart drawn by two huge, well-built oxen, on which then Bheema got on. And Bheema got on, bidding goodbye to his family members and to the Brahmana family. Having done a pradakshina around his mother and taken her blessing and done a pradakshina around Yudhishthira, walked around Yudhishthira and his mother. Taking the blessings, Bheema got onto the cart and started forcing the oxen into the direction where Bakasura stayed. And as Bheema rode the oxen and the cart into the forest, the smell of this Brahmana lady's cooking overtook him. There were many a days during the stay in Ekachakra where his mouth had watered at the wonderful smells coming from the kitchen where the Brahmana woman would cook. And Bheema from those smells had tried to decipher what all went into it. And he was a great cook himself, and to a large extent he tried to mimic the food that the Brahmana would cook. But it was never as aromatic as what that lady would make. And today, as he drove these oxen into the forest, the only thought on Bheema's mind was, today I'm going to taste the heavenly food that this woman has prepared. And so at some point of time deep in the forest when he was all alone and there was no one around, he tied the oxen to a tree so that they wouldn't jerk and disturb him, got onto the back of the cart and started eating the food. And with every morsel that he gulped, he got happier and happier. He started singing, he started dancing, he started singing the praises of this Brahmana woman. He started praising her beautiful hands that cooked this beautiful food. He praised her beautiful mind that brought in this beautiful food. He praised her parents who taught her how to cook so well. And as he went on, the praises for this Brahmana woman flowed through his mouth. He would eat a bit, dance a jig around the cart in absolute pleasure. And he was one of those people who completely loved eating and completely loved a good tasty meal. And as he started reaching the end of this meal, he could just barely look forward to the fight he was going to have with Bakasura. And at that point of time, he decided it is time to now challenge Bakasura. And in a taunting voice, laced with sarcasm and laced with humor, he started screaming out to Baka. Screaming out to Baka, come, Baka, Baka, come. For I have brought your food and I'm finishing it. The food is so tasty, it is so sumptuous. I can't keep my hands off it. Come fast, Baka, lest you will get nothing but empty utensils. And I will make you wash these utensils if you come a little late. Come, oh Baka, come. For I am here with your food and I shall be here eating while you wait for your food. And somewhere that aroma of the food and this sound of Bheema calling out to Baka reached Bakasura's ears. His ears perked up And giving a loud grunt, he came out of that cave where he was staying and came out into the open. He could get the smell of that aroma of the food that Brahmin lady had prepared, and his mouth started watering. And he could hear the sound of Bheema shouting out his name in a condescending voice, mocking him and bellowing out, asking him to come and take what is left of after Bheema has eaten his fill. And Bakasura started thundering down towards the sound of Bheema. And Bakasura was a huge rakshasa, a huge asura, much taller and bigger than Hidimba was. He had broad shoulders and a large paunch from not having to do much physical labor, as now the food was delivered to him every week. A wild look with sharp fangs, pointed ears, red hair flowing down to his shoulders, sparkling eyes gleaming like they were flames, a wild laugh with a facial hair craggily suited all across his face, a wild smile and a wild temper. This great Bakasura screamed as he heard Bheema calling his name. Drawing up to his full height, he looked an absolute terror. For it was said that a lot of times the people who would bring the food to Bakasura and the oxen which would bring the food to Bakasura would drop down dead in fear seeing this wild monster of a rakshasa. And then thundering down the mountain, Bakasura started to come towards where Bheema was shouting out to him insolently. And as he thundered down, the trees shook and his feet went deep into the soil where his footprints would be seen. And then, as he came close to the cart, the oxen got the stench of this wild man, the stench of the odor from his mouth and the odor from his body. And in fear, these oxen started straining against the trees to which they were tethered, pulling across that with a rope, biting through their neck, but trying to escape from this evil beast. And with a blood-curdling growl, Bakasura roared, hoping that this Bheema, this insolent man who seemed to be sitting on the cart eating the food, would drop down dead. It was said that when Bakasura would roar, the people who would bring the food would die. And it was this death that Bakasura would enjoy. Then Bakasura started looking at Bheema, ignoring him, and got more angry and started roaring louder. And then he realized that the vessels in which his tasty food was being brought was almost empty. Eaten by this insolent man? Did he not respect or fear this great Rakshasa, who would normally who would at times in the past come down into the town and wantonly kill and maim people and eat a few and then return back? Did he not know the terror that Bakasura was? What was this insolent man sitting and turning his back to me and eating? And then joining his fists together, he raised his fists and banged on Bheema's back with a loud thud. And to his shock, where other mortal men would have crumpled and died, Bheema hardly moved. He looked back, gave a gnarled smile at Bakasura and said, "Please wait while I finish the last bit of fearsome. This Brahmana woman is such a good cook and I can't bear to leave this go." And this infuriated Bakasura even more. He walked away to a little distance and tore across a tree out of its roots. And then walking back towards Bheema, with a blood-curdling scream, he lifted to the tree above his head, ready to throw it on Bheema. Calmly, Bheema got down from the cart, took the water that was attached to the yoke, washed his hands and mouth, gave a belch, smiled at the Rakshasa and said, "That was a good meal. I'm sorry you missed it." This infuriated Bakasura even more, who then raised this tree over his head and hurled it towards Bheema. Bhimasena lifted his hand and with his elbow pushed the tree away, which came flying towards him. And this was a shock for Bakasura. He had never seen any person who could fling away the tree being thrown at him. He pulled out another tree and started to throw it towards Bhimasena, and Bhimasena again pushed it out with a wave of his hand. And then started the actual fight between Bhimasena and Bakasura. Bhimasena on one side uprooting trees and throwing it at Bakasura, and Bakasura on the other side uprooting trees and throwing it at Bhimasena. And this went on for some time until the entire forest surrounding these two battling giants started to get denuded of trees and became an open field. And then realizing that there were no more trees to be uprooted, Bakasura rushed at Bhimasena with all his might, screaming and a blood-curdling growl. And as he came towards Bhimasena, Bhimasena caught his hand. And then they started twirling around, trying to get the better of each other. And within a short time, Bakasura tired out. For he was not used to physical activity, having been given the food right at his doorstep for so many months. And Bhimasena caught Hidimba's hand, yanked him down, made him lose his balance and threw him on the ground. And then Bhimasena caught hold of Bakasura's hand and started twirling him around, making him lose his balance. And then hurtling him down on the ground, Bhimasena took Bakasura and hurled him on a stone. And Bakasura in agony screamed. And then having got onto Bhimasena, got onto Bakasura's chest and started raining down blows on Bakasura's face till Bakasura almost lost consciousness. And then Bhima turned Baka over onto his stomach, got onto his back and put one knee on his back. Holding the neck of Bakasura with one hand, he held onto the loin cloth of Bakasura with the other, and pulling them close to each other, he broke the back of Bakasura. Hearing this last scream of Bakasura, the various smaller rakshasas who subsisted on Bakasura for their survival came out of the forest in fear and started to see what the matter was. And there they saw this great Bhimasena with his knee across the back of Bakasura, one hand on the neck of Bakasura and one hand on the loincloth. He had twisted Bakasura to an unnatural form. He had twisted Bakasura to a form and folded him over, cracking the back. And then Bhima stood up and challenged the other Rakshasas to come and meet the same fate as Bakasura. And these Rakshasas stood there in absolute fear, in terror. And then Bhimasena told them that if you ever come down to the town of Ekachakra and harm the residents there, I shall come back and kill each and every one of you. From hence on, your duty shall be to protect the people of Ekachakra and see to it that no one else comes and torments them. And agreeing to what Bhimasena said, they all ran back into the woods. Bhimasena then took the lifeless, mangled body of Bakasura and threw it onto the cart. And then untethering the oxen, he started riding down to the town of Ekachakra. By the time he reached, night had fallen and the people had all gone back to their houses. There at the gates of this little town, he took the body of Bakasura out from the cart and threw it down on the side of the road. And then walked back to the house of the Brahmana. When he entered the house, the Brahmana was ecstatic, for he was scared that Bhimasena may not come back. And having seen Bhimasena come back, he knew that the karma of Brahma Hatya wouldn't be there on him, and he was happy that he was not the cause for the death of an innocent man. They all hugged Bhimasena, and all the Pandava brothers and Kunti also hugged Bhimasena, and then asked Bhimasena to recount everything. And Bhimasena at that time started telling praises of the Brahmana's wife of her cooking, and he praised every single dish that he had prepared. And the Brahmana lady blushed while Bhimasena went on singing her praises, while the other brothers giggled and laughed at Bhimasena's love for food. After having eaten his fill of the Brahmina's cooking, looked at the lady and said, I will expect many more such great dishes from you. And she gladly agreed, and the day ended. And so the life of Bakasura was taken. A life that was necessary, that should have been taken by the king of the land, by the protector of the land. But when the land lacks a great protector, when the land lacks a great king, great calamities will befall the people. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Nagendraya Namaha, Om Amme Narayana, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Anjanaya Namaha, Om Subramanyaya Namaha, Swami Sharanamayyappo, Om Guruve Namaha.